No, they're not. Oh, there we go. We're live. Hey guys, happy Thursday. I hope everyone's having an awesome week so far. I'm really excited. We have actually quite a few people that RSVP'd for this. So I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Alexandra Alvarado from the American Apartment Owners Association. And I've talked about, especially in our mastermind, I've talked about it before. And, you know, one of the biggest risks for us in our business is vacancy or a tenant not paying and moving out and stiffing us. And it's like, oh man, like it can really wreck your cash flow for a whole year. And so there's a really amazing program that exists. And I just want to introduce you guys to it because Jennifer and I have been benefiting from this program for the last couple of years, but I had never heard of it. And if I hadn't stumbled upon it, I would never hear. So I'm on a mission to help Alexandra get the word out because we believe in it. So Alexandra, tell us a little bit about you and the organization, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm like super glad that you have benefited from it. A lot of our members have. I'm from the American Apartment Owners Association. Stacy's a member, and we have over 100,000 landlord members, and a lot of them, actually, I would say most of them, are individual landlords that are managing their own properties. They're not big corporate landlords, and so when a tenant doesn't pay rent, it really hits them hard. Our organization really provides different types of tools for you guys to manage your rentals yourself. And one of the tools that we introduced just a few years ago is called Lease Guarantee. And that's the one that Stacy's talking about that's become extremely popular, especially recently because of the pandemic, where basically if a tenant later has to be evicted, you can get covered for the court judgment that you have against them. And that is huge because most tenants never pay back a court judgment. And a lot of landlords, they've just, sort of given up on that and they just really try to get the tenant out. But there is a way that you can recover that money right away when you get that judgment rather than waiting or chasing down that tenant for years, which usually doesn't even work. So this makes it a lot easier and it puts more money back in your pocket.
That's so awesome. Take it off the speaker. There we go. So, Alexandra, tell us just a little bit about how can you walk through some of the logistics on. So I'm a landlord and I've never heard of AAOA and what is it? What do you guys do? And do I know if it's even a fit for me? And
yeah,
just tell us a little bit more from the background standpoint of what some of the benefits are for people just being part of the organization.
Absolutely. So when you join AAOA, first of all, it's free to join. You don't have to pay for membership. But once you become at least a free member with us, then you can start to screen your tenants. So that's really our bread and butter and where a lot of our clients come from is to do a credit and background check. And I'm sure, hopefully all of you guys are all doing credit and background checks before you're getting a tenant in. But as you know, you can screen. And at the end of the day, something could still happen and that might still not be a good tenant after all. And that doesn't mean you're not a good landlord or that you didn't do your job, but that could still happen. So that's one of our main services. We also provide legal forms as well. So basically, you come over to our website, you would screen a tenant with us, and when you're ordering that credit and background check and you get the results back, it'll tell you if the tenant qualifies for lease guarantee. And then at that point, you can decide if you want to get lease guarantee and you can have the tenant pay for it. So most cases, the tenant does pay for lease guarantee. It starts at a few $100s for the whole year, and it basically gives the landlord coverage thousands of dollars. So there's different levels of coverage, and you can choose which one is great for you based on maybe how much your rent is. So let's say you have a rental that's, I don't know, $1,200 a month or something like that, and you get, I would suggest maybe a $2,500 protection plan, which means that you can get reimbursed up to $2,500. And that's more or less, going to be around 2 months of rent in case something happens. So once you send out an invite to a tenant to go ahead and purchase that, then you'll get notified and you can move forward with the lease, and now the lease is covered. And if something goes wrong later, you just let us know. We'll report it to Lease Guarantee. try to work with the tenant if possible. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, and you still have to go to court. And then if you do go to court and you get that judgment, we'll go ahead and reimburse you for the amount of the judgment or the maximum of the protection plan, whichever one is going to be less.
Awesome. And so when I first came across you guys, and I had come across it as a free site first, but I was actually looking for I wasn't initially looking for tenant screening. That ended up being a phenomenal solution, but I was looking for a certain form. I was like, I need a form, and you guys have a lot of different forms. Some of them are free and some of them are part of the premium membership. So I did the premium, which still is nothing. It's like pennies, compared to like all the value that I got out of it. But American Apartment Owners Association, and this wasn't when I was purchasing an apartment, it was just for, a handful of duplexes. And so even if you're like in a 2 to 4 family space and you're not necessarily owning an apartment building yet, there's so many good resources on that website. And Jennifer and I don't get anything for this. We don't get referral fees or anything like this. So just so you know, like, this is really something that we just have benefited from and feel really passionate about, because for a long time I didn't know that it even existed. So they have a lot of different forms that are helpful, particularly if you're, not that I suggest you do your own management, I actually don't, but if you're doing your own management, or if you're kind of tag teaming with a boots on the ground property manager, and so you're involved, and that's what Jennifer and I do in one of our markets quite a bit, there's resources that you need. So anyway, so Alexandra, one of the ways that we have really benefited from like lease guarantee specifically is, we have risk when you meet a tenant and maybe they've been living with family the last couple of years. And so it's not like you can go and verify a landlord, right? It's like, there's just like this, sometimes they seem great, everything seems great, their income is good, but we always want to verify, where do they live? How long did they live there? Do they honor their lease? All those things. And once in a while, there's just a specific situation where there's a divorce and say they lived at home the last couple of years, or just for whatever reason. And we've had situations like that, and it gives you the landlord angst to make that decision. Like, well, I can't verify that one thing, and I want to. And if somebody qualifies for the lease guarantee, it's like, okay, well, all right, they're a good bet, but I don't have to take that risk on. I can pay for a policy, or I can have the tenant pay for a policy that if they do end up moving out sooner or not honoring their lease or anything like that, I can sleep at night because I have this policy in place. We haven't had to use it very much, but we have benefited a couple times in really random things. Like, we had one of our tenants who got an eye injury at work, like he's a truck driver, and something like slashed his eye. And so he was unable to drive because he didn't have good enough vision. He was everything worked out. Like, they were great tenants, always paid on time, everything. And all of a sudden they had a job loss. And so, they moved out fairly quickly, but we still had some loss because we had to get the unit turned over quickly, get someone else in, and the policy was there to cover us for that thing. So we didn't end up losing money.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, is that, you never know what's going to happen. And then also, sometimes you do get these tenants that you maybe want to give a chance to. And I think this might be happening more now because of the pandemic, right? So how do you know that the person who's telling you that they went through a rough patch is actually telling you the truth, and that they are in fact being affected? And if they are, you still want to make sure that you are able to protect yourself. And I've been hearing a lot of landlords on our end that I've talked to that are actually telling me, I don't even know if I want to fill my vacancy right now, because they're so scared that that they might just come across somebody who's just not going to be honest, or who maybe is going to lose their job or something. And it's hard to tell. I think there are a lot of people who were affected by this, and it would be amazing if you lent them a helping hand, but at the same time you did it intelligently. You don't want to put everything out on the line for somebody, and then later on, you're out a lot, and you maybe have an eviction case on your hands that you're not going to get anything for, who knows. So having that lease guarantee has made a lot of landlords feel a lot more comfortable during this time. And I think too, to make some like exceptions, and I think that's going to be the case moving forward. People might be affected, like their credit might be affected by this whole situation, and they might not be bad tenants, and they just probably had a little bit of a rough patch, and it wasn't really their fault. And at least now you can rent to them and feel like, okay, I'm doing a good thing, but I'm also being smart about it.
Yeah. How does it work? So, in general, it's a 12-month policy that you get. So what happens if, obviously, as landlords, it's ideal if people stay, much longer than that, because the unit turnover is an expensive part of it. How does it work when it's at the end of the 12 months?
Yeah, so for that, you can always renew it if you want. So it's always optional. There's no sort of like auto renew or anything like that. You'll get an email reminder 30 days or I believe 60 days even before the expiration, letting you know, hey, it's going to expire. Do you want to renew? And then at that point, you can look at maybe how the tenant has performed in the last year and decide if that's something you want to require for the next year. So a lot of landlords, they find out, hey, it wasn't that bad. They paid me every single month on time. I don't need it again. And others might feel like, okay, maybe this is a good opportunity to do it again just in case. Or the tenant might just move out, they don't renew the lease, and then they don't have to get the lease guarantee, obviously. But yeah, so there's definitely options there, but the term is a year, and that's really where I think most of the risk lies, is that first year. You don't know the person, they're essentially a stranger. You're trying to get to know them and make a good decision. So by then you should know, what kind of tenant they are.
That makes sense. That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So what happens? So let's say that someone is like, yeah, they're going to renew, they're going to do another 12-month lease. Do they have to be requalified through lease guarantee? How does that process work?
Yeah, they do have to requalify. So, the qualifications for lease guarantee, just so you guys know, is like really low. So most tenants do qualify. If they don't, it's usually a combination of factors. It's not just about a credit score. The only thing I know for sure is if they don't have any credit at all, they don't qualify. If they have had more than 2 evictions, they don't qualify automatically, but usually it's a combination of factors. It's pretty rare that somebody would qualify one year and not the next. I've actually never seen that myself. Typically, what will happen is they'll qualify and you can just go ahead and renew. So it's not really a barrier that I've seen or a problem for anybody. It's just there in place just in case somebody happened to file, I don't know, a bankruptcy within the last 12 months or something like that. But so far, I haven't really seen it very often. People's credit can fluctuate, but lease guarantee usually will still qualify them even within, that range.
Interesting. And I've never actually, part of why I'm asking the questions is I would call you later and ask these questions anyway, because I have them. So I'm like, oh, cool, let's talk about it.
Convenient.
I've never renewed, because same thing. It's like, well, once they prove to me, the whole reason I was like, yeah, I want you to get the policy, because every once in a while I'll get a tenant who they do qualify, but they're like a stellar. Their credit score is 800. They've been employed for 3. I mean, there's nothing about them that I could honestly say, yeah, I need you to go buy this policy. I just am like, they look to be like almost no risk. So I don't, I wouldn't force someone, but in general, if someone does qualify, I could usually find some reason to compel them that, hey, we really do need to have this.
Yeah.
And then we'll reduce their security deposit a little bit so that they're not killed on move-in. But it's that first 12 months really shows you what they're willing to do. I'm looking at now, because of COVID, and we have tenants who are in there and they've been good in paying, but that did throw in like a question of, well, what if something changes?
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first time, I'm like, well, maybe I should. And I can't ask the tenants to pay for it. That's one thing I know, that if I do it, that's going to be out of my pocket. So I'm like, how is that going to work?
Yeah.
But there is some for existing tenants who've been good, but all of a sudden there's like this unknown because of what's going on. There's just that extra layer of protection that I might choose to invest in, and it might just be for nothing, and maybe I don't need it, but I know I could sleep better at night.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because we've actually seen more renewals lately, and I think that's why. And
Yeah.
then also the other thing as well, I heard somebody say that they actually gave the tenant back their security deposit to help them out, and then had them buy lease guarantee at the renewal, which is
Oh,
interesting. I hadn't heard anybody do that before.
that's
I mean,
interesting.
the point is there are many ways that you can negotiate this to make it work for your particular rental situation and what you have with that tenant. Sometimes the landlord pays, like you mentioned. Sometimes, most of the time, the tenant pays. It's up to you. You don't always have to renew, but you can. How much you want to charge for a security deposit, also up to you. Some landlords will do it on top of a security deposit, and just if they're really high risk and say, that's just the deal if you want the place. Others, like you, will kind of reduce the security deposit, but then have them buy lease guarantees. So it's not more money, but you yourself as a landlord, you're getting more protection. You're getting thousands more for just that little lease guarantee amount that they're paying.
Yeah.
So in those cases, that's really helpful. And then I think we talked about it last time and you weren't aware of this either. Some landlords just completely forego the security deposit altogether, and this is just replaces it. And that's when they feel comfortable with the tenant, but the tenant might need money for move-in costs and whatnot. So instead of, charging them $2,000-$3,000 on a security deposit, they just say, hey, you can purchase this lease guarantee for like $400 or $500, and then, we're good. And some tenants would love to have that option. I know that moving is really expensive. I moved recently, and let me tell you, it's not easy. It's not fun. And if I had, a little bit of a struggle with money and somebody told me, hey, you can just keep those $2,000 that I just paid on the security deposit, I might consider it. It would be nice. And
Yeah.
it's something else I wanted to bring up with you, Stacy. I've been meaning to mention it to you. You might want to share it with your audience that there are some cities that have passed now laws that prevent landlords from collecting a security deposit.
Oh, I had not heard that.
Yes, and instead, what they're doing is they are forcing landlords to either use a program like Lease Guarantee
Oh. Hmm.
or split up the security deposit over the course of 6 months,
Wow.
which
That
does not
definitely,
sound smart. Don't do that.
yeah. No, that I was like, oh, that
And
does
I
not
don't
sound
I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, the first 6 months are the worst, I mean, in terms of risk.
right.
And, if you're splitting up the security deposit divided by 6, month 2, something happens, like what are you
They have
supposed
no
to
skin in the
use?
game. Yeah.
It's not
Wow.
good. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's coming to California. So there's a bill right now for the entire state of California to pass something like this. It already got passed in Cincinnati.
Wow.
And they're talking about it in New York now. I mean, it's something that's coming, and I think lease guarantee is going to be a really big solution here for those cities and states where this might actually start to trend. And a lot of landlords are really going to be affected if they don't do something.
Yeah, that would be a good solution. I mean, yeah, California and New York are like some of the most tenant friendly places, and
Yeah,
I don't even, I know a lot of you, I know a lot of your members are in California. Like we live
they
in
are.
California, do not invest in California. It is way too tenant friendly here and landlord unfriendly. But lease guarantees, that would be a good solution. So hopefully you guys will get some get some new clients from that if you get the word out.
I know, exactly. And I mean, we don't really want it to pass, obviously, because we care about our landlords, but I'm just glad that we have something like this even before anybody had mentioned any of this legislation. This could be a good solution. But even if you're not, like you said, it is still something that can supplement a security deposit really well. And so we're encouraging landlords, especially now, to look into it and reduce their risk. And that's really what it's all about, is just how can we reduce the risk, right? You want to have the screening, the lease guarantee, the right legal forms, which we provide. We have education to like help you further educate yourself and, reduce that risk, because there's so much risk involved with being a landlord that people don't realize financially, legally. So it's just being a part of an organization that can provide that kind of support for you. I mean, it's not that easy. It's good to have someone on your side.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Alexandra, if someone wanted to get in with free membership or just kind of find out more about you guys and what you have to offer, how do they best reach you or reach the organization? What's their next step?
Yeah, so you would just go to our website, aaoa.com. That stands for the American Apartment Owners Association. And there's a tab for lease guarantee if you want to learn about that. And then there's a join button on the right. You can join for free. If you do pay for membership, you get nice little perks like, discounts and on tenant screening and forms and webinars. So you don't have to pay full price for those if you're one of our members, but if, or paying members, I should say, but you could still be a free member. I mean, it doesn't hurt to join. And then you'll be subscribed to our newsletter, which is a great way to learn about all these new things that are coming out, legislation, tips. And so I think it's a great way to connect and get started. And I would suggest just going to aaoa.com. And then if you have questions, you can also email me, Alexandra at aaoa.com. I can always, have a conversation with you if you're curious about more.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Alexandra. Well, thank you so much for being willing to come on and share that with us. And I hope that benefits you guys. I had never heard of it before. And I've been in real estate for 17 years. So that was shock. Of course, I don't know how long the program's been around. How long has it been around, the lease guarantee?
It is still new. I mean, it's only been about 4 years.
Oh, okay. So I didn't miss out on it for too long.
No. And honestly, I think it's just picking up more and more steam every year. So, it's exciting really that more landlords are starting to know about it because it really is changing the game.
That's good. Well, I know that not only do I tell all my students about it, like in the people in our mastermind, in our course, I've even said, you guys need to go check out AAOA, which that'll be around, the course is done. It'll be around online, forever for our students who are in there. But we believe really strongly in that just because it's helped to mitigate so much risk and so much angst about a decision when something doesn't meet like our perfect little thing. And it rarely does anything meet our like perfect tenant criteria.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Alexandra, thank you so much for spending the time. I hope you guys will benefit from that and go check out AAOA. And, even the premium membership is really inexpensive for all the benefits that you get. There's been times where I just need a quick resource. I just log in. I'm like, oh, cool, I can get that. Or I can get it for a really, really big discount and even the tenant screening. So anyway, it's a great organization. I hope you guys benefit from that and hope everyone has an awesome rest of the week and weekend.
Bye. Take care.